Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of SuperFantaFi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Motherland, Fort Salem. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So in the aftermath of last episode, we do have all of our characters dividing up and doing their respective things. Obviously, let's focus first on Tally going back home to California because she wants to check up on her family. It's interesting because we had just heard from Silver that a lot of the all the elements they're implementing for witches, it's kind of started in California, and then obviously they're going to start like branching out to other places, and even other countries are like, oh, like we want to know how this is working because we want to implement it as well. The whole collar system, so that hey, you can immediately recognize a witch, but it also binds them. But it is kind of like a thing of like, right, you keep it on and take it off whenever you want to. It's just kind of like a quote unquote safety measure. But as Kara kind of puts it, the analogy of like, oh, you put them in the cold water before you put it in the boiling water, because before they even realize it, they're being cooked. So that's kind of what she's saying, that you just little by little, we do this subtle thing, and then by the time you realize what's really going on, it's too late. There's no going back. So we really see the implications of that later on in the episode. But Tally goes back home and she sees her mom, and obviously sees and kind of gets a taste of like, right, this is in California, but eventually it's not just going to spread to the rest of the country. It will eventually be other countries adopting it, that element as well of like binding witches and kind of, you know, because for her it's like, right, here's a family that did nothing. They're already wearing the collars and everything, and they're still getting like harassed of like, oh, like let me see what you're up to. Like, make sure you're not up to anything nefarious, essentially. But she comes home, and, you know, for Tally, it's like, right, I came home to protect you, but her mom's like, I don't need you to protect me. And it's interesting how, and even her mom points out the irony behind it, like, right, we were literally, not that long ago, back in season 1, on the other side of, like, on the opposite sides of this, when I was begging you not to join the army, and now here you are trying to like protect me. It's like, I'm the parent in this situation. It should be me protecting you. You know, I'm sure for her, it's like, it's funny knowing like, oh, my daughter came all the way home to try and protect me. She's got a book club, and Tally like, book club? Finds out book club ain't just a book club. Book club is like her mom's part of like a little resistance cell in California, trying to do fight back a little bit, because they're actually going to break into a federal building. I think it's like all this genealogy stuff of like trying to trace back like anyone that has like comes from a witch bloodline. Like, hey, maybe you're not aware that you're a witch yet, but you have a witch bloodline. So like to kind of like, you know, being able to keep tabs on people, they wanted to kind of take I think a lot of those files. So obviously Tally was like, no, you don't need to do this. Like, this is very dangerous. But once again, her mom's like, yeah, we had this exact same conversation when you stubbornly wanted to join the army. You know, it's like, oh, here's my daughter, went to join the army to save the world. Ha 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 ha. And it's like, you know, and because at first they're like, you want to help us break into a federal building? And Tally's like, oh, you're fine. And she looks at everything and is like, oh, you're serious about this? And it's like, right. She's like, if you don't want to get involved, you don't have to get involved, but I am going to do this. Tally's like, fine, I'll help you out. And, they were able to get the files, but she also found the collars. The difference is these collars kind of picking up where Kara was talking about, Kara was talking about earlier in the episode about they won't even know what hit them. Like, the collars they wear currently can be taken on and off. They do that just to kind of like, all right, let's appease people, because if we don't, we put up too much resistance, it's going to be an issue. But it's like, once again, little by little, taking away your liberties, and you know, and not in like a very extremist route. I mean, in the literal sense of they are taking these people's liberties and treating them like, continuing to treat them like others. And I'm sure their argument would be like, well, they always treated themselves like, that's a whole thing, right, in this universe. But these collars aren't meant to cut them off. It's like everyone will be under the pressure, like, okay, we'll put these collars on and we can take them off whenever we want to. It's like, no, this point, like, they will essentially treat you like dogs and put muzzles on you. I mean, hell, they're already treating you like not even human by putting collars on you, because you need to be muzzled, you need to be controlled. And it's like, right, Tally and her mom end up burning all those collars, and they got away. And for her mom, it's like, right, this scary future that's ahead. Like, you know, it's one thing. It's like, right, we're up this little bit of resistance, but it's like, for her, it's like, yeah, but we burn those collars, so what? They'll just get more. But Tally, what she's learned in the army, it's like, right, like, yes, this is a war, but every battle matters. Like, we won this battle, so let's celebrate that, you know? And both her and her mom both have to deal with the fact is of, like, right, the fear of an uncertain future. And Tally, when she was being so rebellious against her mom, being like, no, I'm going to serve my country, because everything wasn't like, Tally has grown in that fact is that her eyes are more open than ever, which, you know, is kind of a funny statement considering, like, her power of sight, which I think there's a parallel there. Like, right, her view on the world has changed, and with that, her abilities, her sight has grown in that time frame as well. But for her, it's a situation of she was like doe-eyed and like, oh yeah, joining the army, I'm going to do what I can to protect my country. And she found out some ugly truths, especially about Alder. So, you know, how that shaped her and how she's grown from all of that. But she knows what it's like to fear a future that's coming. But her mom tells her, like, right, the woman that was with me when we burned those collars, all you have to do is believe in yourself, and you'll know when the time comes what you can do. Because for her, you know, she is taking that situation last episode where it's like, right, she stopped the glass from breaking, but then later on, after it was all said and done, Abigail bumped into it and knocked the glass out and it broke anyway. So for her, once again, it was a conversation I was having last episode that for Tally, she was seeing that as it's an inevitable future, that there's nothing you can do to change things. But I love that, like, Tally was saying, like, oh, she can't believe how much her mom's changed. But her mom's like, no, I think at the end of the day, neither one of us has really changed. And I thought that was an interesting thing. It's like, right, we are both still who we are. It's just the circumstances around us have changed, but we haven't changed. We're still very true to who we are and who we always have been. So I thought that was kind of a neat little thing. But I also love, like, once again, a little book club being the resistance. Obviously, book clubs have always been kind of sometimes housing, like, you know, some big secrets and stuff like that. But I just thought that was so fascinating. So I'm interested to see. Obviously, this is kind of being back home, I think really did a lot for Tally. And obviously what this means, what she's going to do about the whole Raelle situation, about, like, her being potentially the end of the world. And once again, like, maybe things aren't what you think they are. You know, you have your sight saw one thing, but you don't have perspective in the sense of context is what I'm really looking for. You don't have context to that vision. There's just so many other things at play. She's gonna have to push her sight to see the full scope of everything, because once again, there's a whole bunch of shadowy people, and I don't know once again whether that's Camarilla people or is that like her, Abigail, Adil, and like Scylla, like the people who care about Raelle, are they the ones there? That becomes a big question. Or is that the people, the stewards of the first song? Like, you know, so Tally doesn't have full context for what went down. She knows the end result, but even then, it's like maybe things aren't what you think they are, or maybe they're exactly what you think they are. You'll just have to wait and see. Because like Abigail's super dismissive of it last episode and this episode, with everything going on, she doesn't want to like worry Scylla or everyone else about it. It's like, right, let's just focus on getting Alder back to the mycelium, and let's focus on getting Raelle back. So on the Alder front, Adil and Abigail are sneaking her back onto Fort Salem, and they see the place being what it is. It's like, right, this, you know, for her, it's like, how can my mom like be so cooperative with this? And obviously, the Accords kind of give the government a lot of leeway, and that as a leader of all of this, like Petra has no choice but to comply, which Abigail's like, well, you always found a way to kind of break the rules. And then Alder looks at her and it's like, yeah, and there were massive consequences for the choices I made. So it's like, yeah, mom's trying not to make the same mistakes I did. It's a very complicated and very delicate balancing act that she's, balancing, trying to do what the government is asking her to do, while also trying to do and mitigate and minimize any casualties. Because obviously after hearing from Albin, his sister and Silver are like, hey, we could use this as an opportunity. Like, the session is housing wanted fugitives, so we could use this as an opportunity to invade, and we could send in the army, and then the army and the session will fight it out, witches killing witches, and then, like, our people will be there to kind of sweep up whatever rabble is left, and it's like, oh, the army died fighting the session when any survivors would have been killed by us. So there's that whole conversation. And Albin at one point in time said that Alder was alive because of the mother, and he had to stop himself. He's like, the mycelium. Because, yeah, you took someone else's voice, and it is kind of taking root in you, and I think it will, in the end, it's protecting you now from the mycelium, but I think in the end, that voice you stole will be your undoing in more ways than one. Once again, cannot wait for that bastard. Can't wait for him, Silver, and Kara to all get, not... because it's Kara. I keep doing that because that's the funny thing, because I think the character's name is Kara, but because obviously I'm spelling out in my head like Kara, but I'm thinking like Supergirl or like Grant would constantly call Kara, you know, so it's like, yeah. I think that's what's kind of like slipping me up, but I think her name's like Kara, was it Brant? Either way. So all that's in place, and Petra's trying to do her best to mitigate all this. Obviously, they have the human oversight telling them, like, right, when we get in there, we're going to, like, arrest anyone in the session, blah, 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 blah. But Petra's like, yo, ignore what he's doing. Like, just try and mitigate stuff as much as possible. If you find the wanted fugitive, my daughter's team, bring them back in safely. Make sure they're arrested and not killed, so. But there's everything with Isadora, and once again, kind of her Frankenstein experiments with the whole Petra thing, which is like, oh, look at you, Petra, you're doing great. Sometimes she's like, oh, I'm worried about, like, sometimes when I cook food, like, I might kind of go crazy with the spices or whatever. And then the moment, like, Penelope and Abigail saw each other, like, Penelope snapped. And it's like, right, once again, showing she's still a work in progress. But Isadora is so happy to see Alder again. Especially because, you know, like, there's a part of, like, Isadora that wanted to go with Alder, because it's like, right, she studied the mycelium for so long, and it's just like, right, to be able to see what's there and everything, to experience it. But Sarah's like, no, it'll be your time at some point, but this is not, this is where I have to be. And, she ends up returning to the mycelium to try and say, like, right, I'll do everything I can to help with, anything I can with Rael, but the thing is, like, she's saying, like, whatever the mother decides, like, the mother has a plan, a grand plan that we all have our own roles to play in it, which includes her, which includes Rael. So what that plan is, obviously Sarah's kind of out of the loop in that. The only one who knows the truth is the mycelium itself. I was also surprised. I was hoping that, because Sarah and Petra have their moment later at the end of the episode, is like them getting to meet face to face. I was glad that was able to happen again, because it's like, because I do love that, because, right, all Petra did for, like, the first 2 seasons or so was, like, scheme to get Alder's position, and now, like, you know, the shoe's on the other foot. She even said it earlier this season. Alder needed to kind of step aside, but she always wanted this position, but she didn't want it this way. She didn't want because even she admitted that despite everything, even she missed Alder. And, like, seeing her alive again, it's just like, right, we may not have always saw eye to eye, but I'm glad to see that you are alive. And it's this mutual respect for each other, and Sarah saying that this will and always will be a witch's place, and them, like, grasping forearms like allies and comrades. I love that. I thought that was a beautiful moment, because it's almost Sarah being like, right, like, I trust you. I know you'll do the right thing. I know you'll lead our young down the right path, you know? So I you know, it's like, right, have faith. I know it might seem hopeless at this time, but it's like, no, it's all going to work out. Have faith, believe, hope, you know? So I thought that was kind of nice. But also Petra, that moment where she saw Abigail being like, right, what can we do to kind of help? And it's like, right, Anacostia will go back with you to the session. You'll try and track down, because Thelma is looking for Wade. Because now they're thinking that's why the Marshal took off with Wade and M, because the Marshal might have found out that there was a traitor, a amongst the council, so that's probably why he immediately made sure that they left and not to let them know that Wade was alive, because they didn't want that information getting back to the Camarilla, because that's the only explanation. Once again, the person that was on their side, I'm assuming she's the one that, I mean, well, it could also be the one that met with Wade previously. That she could be the one. Because that wasn't Thelma. It was someone else. I think it was like the main leader of the council. I don't know. The woman that was like super on their side and being like, oh, we should kind of think about, like, part of me wonders, is it going to be her? Because she was so in their defense that I almost feel like she was overcompensating. Once again, I'm assuming the Camarilla promised her, like, right, you turn them in, there won't be an issue in the session. It's like, right, it was all, no one was safe. Like, even if you had helped, it's like, they would have eventually come for the session too. Not unless that person was like, oh, don't worry, you help us, we'll wipe out all the competition, and it's no longer a council, and you'll be the only one in charge. Like, maybe it was something like that. You can only assume it was like, right, the best of intentions or the worst of intentions. It's the either or in extremes of like, right, you did the wrong thing, trusting him, but you thought it was to protect your people, protect the peace of the session, or you thought like, hey, I could use this opportunity. You're an opportunist trying to take advantage and get for a power grab. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see and find out who it is. But yeah, the thing I was bringing up earlier though, I think they'll have a scene together, but I want. Because I think this is the first time, well, I guess maybe Petra had told her off screen, because we never got a reaction from Anacostia finding out, like, that, Alder was alive, so, but I want them to have a scene together. They need to have a scene together, because that was, despite their complicated relationship too, that was mother and daughter, you know? And so I want that. I want to see that. Like, I think it kind of gives some closure to their story to some extent. Like, I mean, granted, she had closure last season when Sarah died, but still, like, having, like, essentially her mother back, you know, I think that'd be, like I said, we didn't even really get that. So, but I think we're going to get it before the end of the series, I believe. Hopefully it isn't like a thing of, right, she has to see her again just to lose her again, which like I said, I think Alder's going to die again when she's going to return to the mycelium and she won't be back, but she'll be like, right, I'm always going to watch over you guys, I just won't be on this plane of existence. This was like a one-time deal to protect the stewards and make sure this all comes to an end peacefully, but I am going away because I need to, it is my time, I've lived a long time, and it's time for the next generation to move on, and they don't need me in the way. I've paved the way for the next generation, like Petra, to take over, and Anacostia, and then like the younger generation, it's your time to rise too, and it's time for someone like me who's been on the foreground of all of this for so long to finally take a back seat, to finally rest fully, you know. So I expect that to be kind of the end result for Sarah's story. We'll see if that ends up being the case. But yeah, Anacostia goes back to the session, and still there's no luck finding Wade. But Thelma is already locked and loaded. For a long time, she already had a militia already ready on the background, because she knew, like, yeah, there might come a day where, like, the peace between, like, the U.S. and the session would not be good. So it's like, right, she always knew that, I guess, there would be a, not necessarily, didn't expect, the Camarilla or Silver, but she knew at some point in time there would be a Silver in power and position, and she wanted the session to be ready for a counterstrike. So things are kind of heating up on that front, as Silver does, like, sign the thing to say, like, yeah, let's storm the session, let's do that. Other than that, we have the Scylla situation, her and Edwin, which I really do love their relationship together, especially like that back and forth. He's like, yeah, I got a steel trap, calling her the different name, Stella. I really love that. It was a really cute moment, and because I think it means a lot for both of them, because obviously it's like they are family to each other. It's like, hey, this is like essentially almost like a father-in-law to her, a father in her life, because it's like, right, this is the father of the woman I love. He's been nothing but nice to me. He loves me because I love Rael. And I think for her, like, who hasn't had a family for a long time, like, I think he's probably like the closest thing to a father figure. which is interesting considering like her relationship with Willow, who was kind of like a friend. It's like, but she's like the mother of your girlfriend, so it's like, which to be fair, she didn't know that at the time when she was getting close to Raelle, but still. And then Edwin saying like, yeah, Willa enjoyed the peace on road trips. He's like, if you, I bet you two would have gotten along. And she's like, I have no doubt. And I was like, oh, right. Like, of course Raelle wouldn't. Well, Raelle probably wouldn't. She didn't have it. I was like, was it? And now, because at first I was like, was there ever a moment she would have had time to tell her dad last season? But then I'm like, I think there was. And I think I remember the scene of them specifically saying like, oh, let's not tell her dad. Because it's like, right, you would have to admit, mom faked her death and she worked with the spree, so she was killing people. But also, she ended up dying again. So like, why tell your dad she's alive just to like have her die again? Like, you know, that's a lot of pain that neither Raelle nor Scylla wanted to bring back in his life. Kind of had no choice, but well, there was that moment at the gas station where Scylla kind of stepped up and he was like, don't do that. Like, you don't know if they had a part. She's like, yeah, I saw you in trouble. I found a way to handle it. But he's like, there are people here who will want any excuse to stone a witch. Don't do that. And she's like, why are you getting mad? He's like, because you're all I have. Like, he wants to protect her. It's like, but she's like, right, you will always have me, but you also have Raelle. I promise you. And so they go to Quinn. That's where he's going to be laying low so that no one ever tries to use Edwin as bait again, like Albin did. But they try to reach out to Raelle, which they're able to reach her, but Willa disconnects that, and so they Quinn ends up talking to her, and they end up summoning her, and she talks to them. And even Edwin, because Edwin had to like face through, like learn the hard truth about like he got many bombshells dropped on him of like, wait, Willow was alive. I mourned her. Wait, she was with the spree. Wait, oh, she died again. What? But she died protecting Raelle. You know, so it's like a rush of emotions. It's just like, right, I just want my daughter back. I want to make sure she's okay. And you know, even though it's the mycelium working through her, I don't know if it's 100% the same thing as Sarah. It seems like it might be, but it's like, yeah, what mother wouldn't protect her child, you know? And Edwin's there, and, you know, Willa, whether it is the mycelium there or not, it's still her consciousness, I think, because when you die, like, all witches become a part of the mycelium. It's a hive mind. And so Willis is there being like, right, I'm sorry, Edwin, I made you grieve me, but it's like, right, you need to return Raelle because we have to be willing to let her go because she has a woman who loves her. She has a family who will fight and protect her. She has a life that we just have to let her go and let her live it. But obviously, like, this is more, I mean, I think there's still some part of her wanting to protect Raelle, but there's so much going on too, and Raelle's got her own part to play in on this. So I think that's what's really motivating Willa, which she leaves to go deal with one of the dig sites. It seems like they've stopped all the dig sites that are going after the mycelium. Sarah still has at least 2 stewards of the first song to track down. So once again, everyone's doing their own part. So, but Scylla ends up leaving because she needs to, and promises like, right, if I find out any way to get Raelle, which I will get her back. And he's like, I know you will. I trust that. You are someone I know. Regardless of what you did in the past, like what you've done for my daughter, you loving my daughter the way you do. Like, I know that that's all that really matters to me. So I just, whatever information you find out, and it's just like, she's like, I promise I won't ever like lie to you again. You know, it's like, yeah, like you said, still trap Edward and just kind of getting his name wrong. And he's like, oh, admit it, you'll miss me. She's like, well, I said I would always tell you the truth. So, and he's like, oh, really? And she's like, of course I'm going to miss you. I'm like, oh, I love it. It's sweet. I believe the show is going to have a happy ending, and I can't wait for that group to kind of be together again. Like Raelle, Scylla, and him. I think that's going to be a beautiful family together. So I thought that was kind of a nice development on that front. In general, I'm very, very excited to see where everything ends up going. Obviously, once again, we don't end on the happiest note with the president, with Silver, signing off on the whole, like, invading the session, how that turns out. So things could get nasty, things could get bloody. So we'll ultimately have to wait and see if they will be able to stall as much as possible to kind of stop this coming bloodshed and stop the Camarilla from getting their way. We'll ultimately have to wait and see how it plays out. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.